chain of responsibility. The National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, or NHVR, is Australia's regulator for all heavy vehicles over 4.5 tonnes gross vehicle mass. The NHVR exists to create a safe, efficient and productive heavy vehicle industry. It comes about as a result of changes to the Heavy Vehicle National Law, the HVNL, which is founded on the principle that anyone who has influence over the transport activity is responsible for safety on the road. The aim of the HVNL is to minimise the compliance burden, reduce duplications and inconsistencies in heavy vehicle regulation across state and territory borders, and provide leadership and drive sustainable improvement to safety, productivity and efficiency outcomes. Chain of Responsibility, or COR, is a term introduced as part of the HVNL, which was amended in 2018. Under COR, everyone in the heavy vehicle transport supply chain has a duty to ensure the safety of their transport activities. The COR was introduced to recognise that multiple parties may be responsible for breaches of the HVNL committed by the driver. As a party in COR that exercises or has the capability of exercising control or influence over any transport task, you have a responsibility to ensure compliance with the HVNL. In practice, it means everybody has an obligation to eliminate or minimise potential harm or loss, that is risk, by doing all that is reasonably practicable to ensure safety. In previous heavy vehicle laws, an incident, accident or road offence had to occur before executives could be held liable. Under new laws, all parties in the COR are required to exercise due diligence to ensure they comply with all duties under the COR. The new law takes a proactive rather than a reactive approach to safety, with wider ranging powers and tougher penalties for breaches. When it comes to the role of a Shellgrove maintenance trade person, or a TA, it will involve them if they participate in the loading and unloading of heavy vehicles or packing up machinery, equipment or parts for transport. Being involved, you become a link in the chain of responsibility. The parties in the chain of responsibility for a heavy vehicle are an employer, a prime contractor if the vehicle's driver is self-employed, an operator of the vehicle, a scheduler for the vehicle, a loading manager for any goods in the vehicle, a loader and unloader of the vehicle, a consigner or any goods for transport by the vehicle, and a consignee of any goods in the vehicle. Some examples include when a party has control or influence over a transport activity and fails to manage, so far as reasonably practicable, the risk it creates. When a party's business practices cause or encourage speeding. When a party's business practices cause or encourage the driver of a heavy vehicle to breach mass, dimension or loading requirements. And when instructions, actions or demands to parties in the supply chain cause or contribute to an offence under the HVNL. This includes any direction, requirement or demand given directly or indirectly to a driver or a party in the chain of responsibility that has an impact on compliance. For example, a consignor or consignee has unrealistic contractual arrangements which causes or encourages the driver to exceed regulated driving hours or drive whilst fatigued. A scheduler's business practices, requests or demands cause or encourage the driver to exceed the speed limit, or contracts that cause or encourage a driver of a heavy vehicle or a party in the chain of responsibility to break the law are illegal. The COR legislation changes means that the breaches can occur at any point in the supply chain. The most common breaches are applying business practices or demands that cause a driver to breach fatigue management requirements or speed limits, failing to weigh, measure or secure loads, including poor weight distribution over the axles, setting schedules with unrealistic timeframes, causing unreasonable delays in loading and unloading, impacting on the driver hours and delivery times, packing goods incorrectly, entering terms in contracts and arrangements that encourage, reward or give incentives to drivers or other parties in the COR to breach the law. There are a great many people that could be implicated in a breach of the HVNL, as we have seen. The type of duties a Shellgrove person could be performing having such an impact would be around loading and unloading a vehicle or packing goods. If part of your job involves these aspects, you need to be aware that your actions you take or even do not take are not going to contribute to a breach in the law. The most likely cause of a breach would be around load shift, load security, that is, articles not tied down securely, and load imbalance. Although the driver is responsible for the load on the vehicle, if palletised or containerised loads are packed by a Shellgrove employee inadequately and loaded onto the vehicle, that can be the subject of a breach. Ensure packaging methods are appropriate and carried out properly, including but not limited to shrink wrapping, tight packing within containers, and pallets and containers are in appropriate condition. Make sure you communicate carefully with the driver on where they want the items placed on the tray. If it does not look right, that is, there is too much weight on one side, question it. You have a responsibility to ensure the load is appropriately placed, even though the expertise should come from the personnel having logistics experience. The same applies with load tie-down. Before the truck vacates the loading bay, make sure all items on the tray are tied down. This is purely a precautionary matter, as anyone can easily overlook an item and be distracted and not complete the task. The result from a load shift, due to not being secured, can be fatal. For Shellgrove employees' involvement in meeting their obligations under the COR, it is really quite simple. If you are packing machinery and its parts for relocation, make sure parts are boxed, crated or palletised tightly and secured, so transport vibration will not allow movement. If you are a rigger or operating a forklift, make sure the load is placed on the truck, giving thought to weight distribution and potential load shift. Inspect the load before the truck vacates to ensure the load is tied down securely and balanced to the best of your knowledge. If you have doubts, speak to the truck driver. Some examples include when a party has control or influence over transport activity and fails to manage so far as reasonably practicable the risk it creates, when a party's business practices cause or encourage speeding, when a party's business practices cause or encourage the driver of when could COR apply? The new law takes a proactive rather than a reactive approach to safety with wider ranging powers and tougher penalties for breaches. You may be asking what this has to do with working in a role as a fitter, electrician, boilermaker, or roles in manufacturing maintenance. So getting back to the role of Shellgrove maintenance trades, the chain of responsibility, or COR, is a term introduced as part of the HVNL, which was amended in 2018. Under the COR, everyone in the heavy vehicle transport supply chain has a duty to ensure that safety of their transport activities.